Sorry, hopefully you hear me a little better now. Urban Meyer is on his way to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It'll be very, very interesting to see kind of how that turns out. Urban Meyer is a very, very good coach. It's a great hire. Um, I don't know if Jacksonville should have kept Dave Caldwell as GM, but to be fair, I get why they would. Um, I have watched the team, and I know there's some super fans um, down there in Jacksonville. And it's because to be fair, it's not a situation where the team also hasn't drafted well. They have actually drafted pretty decently. It's just Doug Marone was not. He wasn't. Well, sorry, not Doug Marone, but um, maybe it was Doug Marone, but he was not getting the most out of most of that talent since uh a lot of those guys they traded away, or they either traded away or let go. Calais Campbell, Jalen Ramsey. It goes on and on and on and on. One guy, of course, ended up in prison, or may still end up in prison. I have not, unfortunately, followed his court case. Blake Bortles just, I try to tell. I used to be in the fan boards, the like Jet Nation, Jaguar Nation, Duval Nation, those blog sites a lot. And I used to say, like, if you are hinging your bets on Blake Bortles staying a high level quarterback, my friend, you are sadly mistaken. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what Urban Meyer does down there, and it'll be because right now there's not even a guarantee that there's not even a guarantee he might not take Trevor Lawrence, which would be insane. He should definitely take Trevor Lawrence, even though he's known Justin Fields since I think he was like a sophomore in high school. So that'll be very interesting to see. The defense isn't that bad. A lot of players opted out for them this year, but CJ Henderson came along really, really, really well. Um, so very, very interesting to see what'll happen there. Um, Before I get into the Jets and our head coaching hire, I'm actually going to go ahead and take our first caller. Caller, you're live. Go ahead, brother. So, what's your thoughts on the two new head coaching hires? That's true. Yeah, that didn't go well at all. Oh, I remember. I do remember it some. My question though, because Urban Meyer for me is a little bit of a different beast, and hear me out when I say this before I ask you the question, boss. Um, when I see Urban Meyer though, even though he's mostly been a college coach, what I do see is a very high capability of developing players. Um, I mean, just at the pro Utah, Florida, Ohio State, as many guys as he has sent in the first and second round that became very, very good pros. Um, and then I also look at really his overall ability to call plays or to manage his coordinators to be able to get the most out of players. And yes, you're absolutely right. College is definitely different. than the NFL. But when I kind of look at him, um, for some reason, my the football history, I mean, kind of looks back at guys like, now Pete Carroll had already been an NFL coach, failed, and then went and succeeded at a high level at USC, and then came back. Um, but I think of a guy like Jimmy Johnson, who had some small NFL background, but was mostly a college coach before he coached the Dallas Cowboys back in the 90s. I'm not saying he'll be Jimmy Johnson. True. But that's why, that's why when I look at the hire for Urban Meyer, I think it could work. The only thing to me that's the biggest strike is not, to me, it's not even the college part of it. It's the fact that when the scandals have popped up, he's tucked tail and run. Now, when you look at his history in college, what do you think overall could happen with him down there in Jacksonville? I do like some of the defensive players. I do like some of the defensive players. James Robinson did come along kind of nicely, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, when I think about the Jets and the Jaguars, I actually think the Jets are a bit further along than even the Jaguars are as far as rebuilding. Um, because a lot of the draft picks, I think, for the Jets have mostly hit. Now we'll see going into next year, but Bryce Hall down the year, down the line late in the year started to come along. Denzel Mims looks like he can be a talent. We didn't get the chance to see Cameron Clark or Jabari Zaninga, with the edge rusher out of Florida actually. So it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, when I think of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I mean, Josh Allen is a stud pass rusher. Um, really like the kid who they got out of the Cleveland Browns. His name is eluding me right now. Alongside the very, very elite Miles Jack. And CJ Henderson was coming along really, really well the last 5 games. So I think defensively, they're not that far off. But offensively, I think he's going to have to rely on running the football a lot just to kind of get through his year next year. Plus, their line is actually not too bad. I mean, they have 3 former Pro Bowlers on that line. You're not impressed, huh? True. I mean, it just means in the past they've been. It just means in the past they have been very, very good players. Well, I mean, and what's your thoughts on Robert Salah coming to the Jets? Probably sounds like he'll be bringing Mike LaFleur, Matt's little brother, from San Francisco with him. What's your thoughts on Robert Salah? Exactly. I agree. Oh, it's amazing because when I think back, I just and I couldn't believe I was saying it, but I was like, man, I can't wait for Woody to actually get back because I don't know what his brother's doing. I don't know how his brother got suckered in to Adam Gase the last 2 years. Like this guy's never. I mean, yes, when he like his first year in Miami, he found a way to make the playoffs, but that team wasn't a bad team. What was that? Yeah, an offensive guru, an offensive genius. It was. Uh it was an abomination. I mean, even like the 7-9 year, and I agreed with most Jets fans when last year they won those games, and I just said like, yeah, we beat a lot of bad teams, so maybe we're mediocre at best, but we shouldn't be striving to be mediocre. And I'm like, also his play calling was still terrible. Really, the defense created a lot of opportunities for the offense to make plays off schedule because the play calling itself was awful. I do like Mike LaFleur a lot because I do get a sense. I get a sense. The reports were that the understanding, and it's something that Robert Saleh pitched to them, was that they believe that the West Coast offense, because he ran it in college and was very good, and he actually did okay his first year, with once again a defensive minded coach, will work for Sam Darnold, or hell, maybe even work for James Morgan a lot better, which once again I thought is an incredible indictment now even within the coaching ranks against Adam Gase, which he deserves it. That they feel like, listen, we can, if as long as we can run the football, bets as far as quarterbacks coming out in the draft really were not sure bets, which I agreed with. Zach Wilson really only had like 1.5 good years. Justin Fields, I mean, we just saw in the college football championship, still struggles to just sit and read a defense. So it's, there was really no sure bets. Mac Jones coming out. Mac Jones is going to be a very good pocket passer, but he's not very mobile. So yeah, I did like that, and I liked, and I did like hearing, like, I was a Big Rex guy. His first 3 years, I was a Big Rex guy, and then I started seeing some of the flaws in the coaching. What are your thoughts on the fact that, Robert Saleh sounds like he's energetic, he's about accountability, and I mean, even some of the praises that he got from former players out there in San Francisco? Oh yeah, yeah, no, yeah. It's crazy because, yeah, no, I mean, it's so interesting because, like, the it felt like because it was funny because the defense is actually still, for San Fran, the defense was still a top 10 defense, even though, I mean, they got hit with the injury bug horribly. But offensively, it felt like Kyle Shanahan maybe was a bit overzealous about guys like Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. Um, because one thing I can say about Jimmy Garoppolo when I think of Jimmy Garoppolo, is the fact that I mean, he's not impressive, but he's also not going to lose you football games. But Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard seem to have that not as bad as Mark got later on in his career with the Jets, but it's a really terrible, like, Hayward wire bug where they just throw the wrong pass in key moments, and it absolutely squalors you. You know what I mean? But the running game was still decent, but the team kind of just, because the passing game was so inefficient, they just kind of fell off. You know what I mean? Which is why one of the things I was going to talk about after the two head coaching hires was, is I wonder if John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are thinking, well, because it sounds like they're probably going to let Jimmy go before, I think it's sometime in the middle of March before the new year starts, so they can get that money off their books. I wonder if they're just going to package a ton of picks and try to go get Deshaun Watson out of Houston, since that's kind of come up as well. Like, because when I think about it, he would be the perfect quarterback for Kyle's system, and the fact that even though a part of me doesn't want it to happen, because then it would feel unfair, especially to the rest of the NFC West. And as we can clearly see, The Seahawks have a lot of issues they need to address. By the way, I'm not sure if you did, but while I like Jamal, I did kind of get a chuckle of how they lost that game last weekend. Unfortunately, it looks like I lost the caller. He always calls in. He also has a radio show here on Blog Talk Radio. Actually, if you come to my Blog Talk Radio, I believe I have it in my description. If I do not, I will definitely put it back down there. He's an excellent caller, and always fun to talk to. But yeah, as I was alluding to there, it will be interesting to see what happens with it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kyle Shanahan and what he decides to do. That was the other story I was going to talk about, so I'll just get into it. Because Jimmy Garoppolo just simply cannot stay healthy. I believe Jimmy, once he gets released, will be on his way back to New England. I know there has been some rumors that maybe they would like to actually maybe keep Cam for another year. I don't know if Cam should do that. I think Cam, now that Patton is up there in Denver, I would think Cam's representatives will want to talk to Denver because Denver has a running game. Denver has weapons. And hopefully, as long as everyone's healthy and back next year, Denver will once again have a top 10 defense. Drew Lock is a bit of a disappointment. I was very high on him coming out of Missouri. I thought he was everything Jay Cutler failed to be in the NFL. Big kid, big strong arm, athletic as hell, but actually shows some sort of personality and an ability to care, where it felt like you were never getting that out of Jay Cutler. Like he was talented. He showed brilliant games at times where, you saw the potential of Jay Cutler, but most of the time it was lackadaisical. He threw boneheaded picks that didn't need to ever be thrown because he had such a cannon of an arm, and really was a disappointment most of his career, I felt. I thought Drew Lock would avoid that. The problem with Drew Lock was he had a really, really nice 6 to 7 game stretch as a rookie where you're like, okay, this is what we thought we would see out of him. And unfortunately, that's not what happened. And now I'm starting to doubt the quarterback Drew Lock could be. It's almost the same thoughts where if we would have got the first pick, people are like, listen, let Sam go. Sam will probably succeed elsewhere. Which I'm like, well, if he goes to San Fran or Indianapolis, he's going to succeed. Those guys know how to coach a young quarterback. He's only 23. Plus, they have all the pieces in place to help a young quarterback quickly develop and thrive. Like it's there. Like it's there. Maybe Drew Lock needs new scenery. He also kind of boneheadedly somehow, I don't know if he got the quarterback room infected, but they basically went in to a game with, I believe it was Kendall Hinton. Do not quote me on that, but I believe it was Kendall Hinton, who was technically supposed to be a wide receiver in the NFL, was, I think, working retail, and they kind of had to get him off the streets and have him play quarterback before a game for them, like hours before. And, interestingly enough, he played okay, but they still lost the game. And it's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Like it's a lot to do when you're only like 2 years out of college. you haven't really played very much. That's a tough sell. You bring in Cam, you can either decide to make Drew sit for another year since you have him definitely under contract for one more year after that, because he was a second round pick. So almost like a first rounder. I believe they have fifth round options, but they're basically not as large. Um, and I think Cam is very capable of running that West Coast offense with those wide receivers and making it work. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about in the NFL before I go on to the NBA was divisional weekend and then what happened last weekend in the wild card round. Man, the Browns gave it to the Steelers. Like, did the Browns ever give it to the Pittsburgh Steelers? If you're Pittsburgh, the only way I bring Ben Roethlisberger back into the fold, because his cap hit next year is over 40 million. Ben is not worth over 40 million anymore. He looked older last year. Like, everything finally caught up to him, and he's been a great quarterback for a long time. But definitely future Hall of Famer. But he just looked older. You know, and I mean the way the defense had it handled to them, you kind of feel bad because that defense had been mostly elite all year. But the Pittsburgh Steelers' problems were mostly all on the offense and the defense being on the field too long. They couldn't run the ball a lick. Like, when they started 11-0, I think even on this show, I remember talking about how, listen, this is not much different. I seemed and sounded like a hater to the Patriots last year when they started 11 and I think 10-0, 11-0, something like that. But just watching the games, I went, this is one of the worst undefeated teams I've ever seen. Like, they could have easily lost some of these games that they've won. Now they won them, and I give them credit, but it's not going to last long, and they're going to be one and done in the playoffs. Because you can just see the holes as you're watching the games. And with the Steelers, it was the short passing game opens up the long passing game because they really weren't a consistent running team all year. When Le'Veon Bell sounded like he was going to be traded, I thought the Steelers should find a way to make amends and just bring him back to the fold because he knows the scheme so well. And maybe Le'Veon is a little out of his prime now. Maybe Le'Veon is not going to be the running back everyone hoped he would be in New York, that he had been in Pittsburgh all those years before he came to the Jets, and Adam Gase kind of ruined him or helped to ruin him. But you saw it. I mean, you saw the weakness there. So when the Browns destroyed them, though, like they did, especially when I look at the Steelers defense, I'm like, yep, this is the worst case scenario, where I thought, listen, if the Steelers defense struggles during the game, they're simply getting absolutely blown off the field. There's no question about that. And that's what happened. By the way, it's amazing how good Baker Mayfield looks without number 13. They need to make the trade, get a first rounder or even a second rounder back, because clearly Baker is the accurate quarterback we thought he was coming out of Oklahoma. But maybe, some people were saying, some experts thought, when I watched film, he seems to, Odell reliant. That's pretty clear now, because without Odell, I mean, Jarvis Landry was the number one receiver in Miami, people. I mean, the guy's an excellent route runner. There's not a lot of balls he won't catch. I mean, he's a catch radius machine for the most part. I like Rashard Higgins. I like the kid that they drafted out of, I want to say Miami University, but I could be wrong. I think it's Kari Dodge. another fast guy, but great route runner. And they had the two tight ends. Seth DeValve and David Njoku, before he got hurt, are excellent route runners and pass catchers. They built the team perfectly around him. That was always the biggest failure to me of the Browns was that, and I think the new GM, who's a black man, and I like that, but I think the new GM and Kevin Stefanski get it. He doesn't need that kind of guy because Baker can just, within the system, Baker can make the throws. He can. It was never that he couldn't. I thought last year he started to really look bad. Really simply because he, really simply more so because he was 13 reliant. He was over reliant on 13. Odell gets hurt, and I hope he fully recovers. Hell, if I'm the Jets, especially if I'm not taking a quarterback, I decide not to take Devontae Smith as the number 2 pick. I think if I'm trading down, if I'm the Jets, I use whatever extra second I have, trade it to Cleveland, and go get OBJ. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the Cleveland Browns demolishing the Steelers was a hell of a surprise. The Buccaneers beating Washington was not a surprise. But what was a surprise is that game was Taylor Heinicke played his ass off, people. And he might have played his way into some talks to come back, some quarterbacks up. Wow, what a performance, man. What a performance. I still have no problem with what Chase Young said. Chase Young is going to be an elite pass rusher for a very, very long time. It's just Tom Brady made enough plays to win that game because he wasn't over outstanding in that game. Washington's defense is pretty close to Super Bowl contending elite. Washington is another team once again in the that will be in the quarterback carousel because I actually think there's a high chance that Alex Smith decides to retire. And I mean, what a story he's been. I mean, at first they told him he could lose his leg, and even after losing his leg, there's a possibility he could lose his life. And he somehow fought through all that, rehabbed hard, and was able to come back and win enough games in a terrible division, absolutely horrific division. Cowboy fans, cough, cough. But he was able to come back and win enough games to lead them to the playoffs. I've always liked Alex Smith. After that, I loved Alex Smith. He should definitely be comeback player of the year. To me, there's no question. And I do also believe that he should be, if he does retire, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but I think there should be a plaque for him, and not as a Hall of Fame quarterback because his stats and none of that give him that, but just as a story of inspiration. Like his whole career, being drafted number 1 overall in San Fran, it not really going well for a long, long time, and almost being labeled as a bust. John Harbaugh gets there, basically kind of gives him the offensive playbook, tells him, "You're my guy," and he just thrives. He thrives. He absolutely thrives. He gets hurt. Colin Kaepernick, stud, Super Bowl stud. So he gets traded to Kansas City because Andy Reid said, "Yeah, I believe in him being able to run my system," because he never had the biggest arm, but he was one of the most accurate quarterbacks ever. Almost reminded me of a much better Chad Pennington. He's an inspirational quarterback, inspirational man, and was great. But like I said, I wasn't shocked that the Buccaneers won. I wasn't shocked that the Saints won either. I was shocked in how dominant that they were. Um, and how happy they must have been that the Minnesota Vikings did not make the playoffs this year. Even though they had whipped their behinds to help them not make the playoffs. I think that was week 15 or week 16 or something like that. But the dominance of the Chicago Bears, who will also be in the quarterback carousel because, yeah, listen, it's one of those things I've always said. We know what Mitchell Trubisky is. Okay. We all know what Mitchell Trubisky is, but we also know what he is not. Like we know what he is not, and he is not that dude, as Ryan Clark would say. He's just not. He's he's simply not that guy. So understanding that he's not that dude, um, you know what I mean? So like I said, it'll be interesting to see the rest of Wild Card Weekend. The Bills actually might be a Super Bowl team. As a Jet fan, I I thought I thought last year Josh Allen hit a ceiling. I did not expect to see what I saw. What's going on, Trey? I did see your message. How you doing, big man? Um, yeah, I did not expect the Bills to be such a dominant team. They are a Super Bowl contender, and I do believe that they are a team that can beat Kansas City, who, by the way, while have won most of their last games, have not looked dominantly impressive. Let's just be real. They have not looked overly dominantly impressive whatsoever, man. Um, oh, that's all right. I unfortunately had a little issue on the blog talk, so the show ended a little early. But still, join me on my YouTube for those watching. Not overly impressive when I think about the Kansas City Chiefs, but they're still the champs. They still got Mahomes. Uh, they still got Tyreek and Nicole, Travis, and the defense is still very opportunistic. So they're just a force to deal with. Um, but I think they're also in a little trouble this week if they're not fully concentrated on the Cleveland Browns, who got a ton of players now back off of the COVID list. Like, yeah, don't think you can't be had, man, because you can be had. Um, Getting into the NBA season, which I've been dying to do. Let's talk about it. The trade. The Brooklyn Nets get James Harden. And really, to me, they got James Harden because I don't even think Kyrie's coming back. Um, Stephen A. Smith on ESPN recently talked about how, he was like, I at this juncture, I think Kyrie should just retire. Um, because like you said, clearly football is not a priority for him, and I am 1,000% with him. Um, Sorry, give me a second. But yeah, I don't believe that Kyrie could be back. I'm all for guys taking their time to spend time, away from the game if they need to, because basketball is not going to be there your whole career. There will be a life after basketball. Just for any sports athlete, there's usually a life after your professional career is over. I get it. I've always respected it. But bro, you still not back because of what? Really, Kyrie? Like just like I've I've never believed in people telling athletes to shut up and play. It's just disrespectful. They are people. They should be able to voice their opinions, and I don't have a problem with that. Um, but what I do have a problem with is you basically abandoning your teammates. Like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Um, I, so yeah, I don't understand it. Um, but and I know he got fined $50,000 recently, so I'm restarting my show again on live on Sports Talk Radio because for some reason it checked itself out again. But yeah, I don't understand his reasoning this time. Like, so like it's I don't know. Kyrie has always been frustrating to me. Um, he's he's very Kanye West like. Like he just yes, he's very smart, but the the idiot savancy on his part is unbearable. Back on Blog Talk Radio. Sorry for that. I don't know why that part of the show cut out, but we are back now. Um, Talking about the NBA. Um, but Brooklyn getting James Harden is huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge. If Kyrie can come back into the fold, if he decides to come back into the fold, it'll be very interesting to see because now you have two guys with incredibly high ball usage as far as like the ball in their hands. It actually was working all right for Harden and Russell last year. Um, Houston was a high scoring team, but in the end, I understand why they had to break them up. It just it wasn't going to work out much longer. Um, and I actually think John Wall is a better distributor of the ball, even though he's a high ball usage guy than James Harden. Um, and I think Kyrie can be, and there's ways that it can work. Um, but like I said, we'll see. Because the other thing was what they didn't make better is the fact that these guys don't play defense very well. I mean, KD kind of will, but the rest of that team does not play a lot of good defense in Brooklyn. They just don't, which is why it's been interesting how for a while there they've actually had a worse record than the Knicks. Um, it will be interesting to watch this team try to acclimate to each other. I know people think, well, now if Kyrie comes back to the fold and they make it, well, the big thing is, well, will they make it work? Because they are not going to the finals with what they kind of have sorted right now. Moving on to the Knicks. The Knicks are still my beautiful, pleasant surprise. Like, I'm so excited for the New York Knicks right now. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't. But it's so exciting to watch Knicks basketball again. Like, the fact that, I mean, Julius Randle played like an absolute all-star stud. Really love RJ Barrett's development right now. Love the kid that we drafted's development right now. Tom Thibodeau, of course, they're going to play good, tough defense. Good, tough defense. And what I like that I've seen out of this team is Tom Thibodeau, in the past, his offense, the offense on his teams has struggled. It feels like they are way more free flowing, man. Like, I like it. I'm excited for it. I'm actually excited to watch Knicks basketball now when the Knicks are on, because it used to be, as a Jets and a Knicks fan, it's just like, well, we're going to get our butts whipped after the second half. It doesn't matter. I don't even know what I'm watching because I'm just going to get upset. Like we're not going to do anything. The owner is just is the worst owner, which he still is to me. But what I do like is that he's kind of gotten out of the way. Is it West? It's West something. I should have had that note ready to go. That's my fault. Who kind of took over branding and marketing and some of the presidential stuff of the team. It's working. It's working. Keep him away. Good head coach. I always liked the Thibodeau hire, but I was wondering if he ever learned anything from his failures in Minnesota about like just letting these guys play offense and changing up his style just a little bit, because he's a great coach, but just change your style up a little bit with some of these young guys. Not everyone is not everyone is Jimmy Butler. They're just not. And it's working in New York. It's working. I love what I see from this team. Even when they get down 20, they're very competitive. They find ways to play as a team, as a unit with heart, and they come back, even if they don't always win. But that's what you like to see. And the nucleus is good and it's young. Man, it would be nice to get another star, but I'm actually very big on letting RJ Barrett continue to develop, because I think he will be that star. I can finally see it now and parts of last year. So, always exciting to watch or talk about the Knicks when they're actually doing better and not just be another guy on the internet just domineering the New York Knicks. Because it's easy to hate on the Knicks, but not when they're playing better. Feels great. Another few surprises to me in the NBA, the T-Wolves. Really like what I see out of them. Problem is, it's just not a lot of not a lot of height on the team. And I know that sounds weird and stupid, but they get dominated in the paint. And like I said, it's another team. They're not going to make a lot of noise. To me, I think the NBA seasons are always ruined depending on what LeBron does, what Golden State does, and because you just feel like one of the teams in the West will win it. Miami, of course, is better. They're still a great team. Jimmy's still down there. Jimmy's still a superstar. Philly is always an interesting team to watch in the East. Boston has been a little up and down this year, but they're a very good young core player, a group of players. They really are. And Toronto always makes noise. They just do. And that's a credit to the head coach and the GM up there. They do a great job of retooling every year. But you got a feeling like it's going to be, Golden State and LA Central in the NBA. It just is. Those are the more dominating teams. They're going to get talked about, and they're going to be the teams that probably have the best shot at winning the chip. It's as real as it gets in the NBA, unfortunately. Now hockey's back. Hockey is back. Watched a couple of the games. For those who don't know, I'm in Minnesota, so if there's one thing that gets talked about around here when the Vikings aren't very good, because no one here really likes the Packers, and I respect that. I'm sorry to Packer Nation. You guys have historically have a lot of good history behind you. It's a very good team this year. They actually have a shot to go to the Super Bowl and not waste another year of Aaron Rodgers' career. But I get it. The jersey colors are ugly. And all that really you got going for you is that Lambeau and the history of the football team is great. I'm kidding, Packer fans. Just like to poke fun. I like to poke some fun. They're a great football team. And the Milwaukee Bucks are an excellent basketball team. But in Minnesota, when the Vikings aren't very good, you talk hockey in Minnesota. Um, very, very good to see hockey back. Um, it's a game I learn more and more about every day. Because here during the COVID time, the COVID protocols, there's not usually the big thing would also not just be pro hockey, but it would be high school hockey, college hockey, little league hockey. But for protocol reasons and understandable, a lot of that's not going on. Um, there was a thing I know here in northern Minnesota where they had a thing called let them play, but where I disagreed with some of the parents where is like, listen, man, they're kids, but we also have to protect you guys. So if everyone's not going to kind of be safe about doing this, then there's no point in doing this. But I digress. NHL season, Lightning look great. Man, it's so good to see hockey back. It'd be nice if we can get hockey fans back into those arenas, because hockey to me is at its best when the fans are there. But once again, like the NBA, they're going to have a shortened season. Not for me, not a lot to say right now on hockey, just because it got started. And when I think of hockey, I almost think of like baseball in the sense of the beginning of the season. You won't hear me talk a lot about baseball, but near the middle, I'm going to start to really get into the analysis of it all, because teams are just trying to find their way in the beginning of the season. But it was great to watch hockey last night. Great to have it back. And last but not least, before I go, usually I would not talk about boxing on this part of my radio sports talk, but I'm gonna talk about it today because we are now about, I believe it's about 3 weeks away from Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul. It's funny. I find it hilarious. They have not done a lot of promotion for what could be an absolute murder in 3 weeks. Floyd is going to give it to you, son. Floyd is going to give it to you. This kid hasn't promoted it much. The numbers are still very good though for the buy rate. But man, this kid's gonna get killed. Floyd Mayweather is gonna hurt this kid. People aren't even doing analysis on it anymore. It's been insane. It's been absolutely insane. I'm still looking forward to the fight. I think I'm going to do a live reaction to the fight. Of course, it will not be concurrent to my live stream on YouTube, but basically, if you're watching the fight, I think I'm going to get a couple friends who also do sports reactions. I think we're going to go ahead and get together, and we're going to watch that fight together, safely distanced, of course. But we're gonna watch that fight together, and make it happen. And I'll have my popcorn ready, as T.O. once said, because that kid's gonna get it handed to him, and I feel bad for him. But he's gonna learn some lessons, and it's good to learn lessons in life. This early, when you're that rich and that spoiled, life lessons are very, very good. He's gonna get knocked the hell out. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on Blog Talk Radio. Like I said, I'm sorry that the feed cut out there for a minute. Tomorrow's show for Blog Talk Radio will be pre-recorded. And for everyone watching me here on YouTube, tomorrow I will actually be doing some live feed of music. Music. What? Yes, I play in a couple bands, but my main band, Winning Isn't Everything. Winning Isn't Everything, which you can find on all streaming platforms, including right here on YouTube. We will be doing kind of a semi-live concert, streaming-wise, tomorrow. YouTube.com/Winning Isn't Everything Music MN, I believe, on YouTube. And we will also be on Twitch, twitch.tv/Winning Isn't. Actually, I can put that link down below here before I get off. And we're going to be probably live for about 3-4 hours, hanging out and jamming, playing music. maybe taking some requests, taking your donations. So the wrestling show will actually be pre-recorded, but it will be put up as far as the blog talk. It'll be put up tomorrow night. I'll have the upload time probably about 7 p.m. something like that. That way you can just go listen to it. Will be no guest on that one tomorrow, but I am working on a couple of guests for next Saturday, which I'm very, very, very excited for. And actually, next Saturday, because I will actually go ahead and schedule these streams out on YouTube. You'll get a feed with the other couple of guys that I hope to have on for that show next week as well. So they'll actually be in person. We're going to take chats. We're going to take calls. Feel free to just come into the YouTube chat and just bring your friends if you like talking wrestling, MMA, and come chat with us. It's going to be fun. We're going to probably go hard for about a couple hours. And also, if you like the show, even if you watch it after I've gone live, feel free to subscribe, man. I'm kind of working on a separate YouTube. It's not going very well, but for now, I will still make sure everything I do video wise is uploaded to this channel as well. Thank you for joining me. Like I said, next week, the radio show will be live on here. But tomorrow night, I'm doing concurrent streams, so feel free to join us for my metal band, Winning Isn't Everything, where I am one of the singers and lead writers. We're going to be going hard in the paint for quite a few hours because concerts just don't exist right now. And now with a possible new strain of that Roan, so they don't take me off the air, of that Roan, we are probably just, we'll be masked up. That's how we're going to do concerts, and we're going to go from there. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put the link in here right now. Twitch TV/Winning Is It. We'll be live tomorrow at about 5:36 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. Like I said, tomorrow, the wrestling/MMA stream and all that for Blog Talk Radio will be pre-recorded. I'll be doing that sometime tonight, getting it edited down. Unfortunately, the last one I did was kind of a mess, so I took it off. But from now on, not only will they be on Blog Talk, but hopefully I will actually have news next week on them being on the streaming platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon. So once again, thank you, and I'll see you again next week. Take care, guys. Love you. Be safe.